Podcast, where we interview interesting people doing interesting things, where you can expand your connections, your community. Kindness is cool and smiles are free. And let's get this party started. And I'm so excited. I'm so excited to be here today because we're going to throw the Wayback Machine on, and I'm going to interview and have a conversation with somebody that I have known for a few years. And it's amazing to me to see how relationships can actually develop and go quiet sometimes, and then all of a sudden reappear, because PJ and I have known each other for, I'm guessing, 30 years, PJ. And I don't
Probably,
know.
yeah. Probably.
And I just want to thank you for being here. And the Pirate Broadcast is all about interesting people doing interesting things. And you've always been in that niche, and causing a little bit of challenge and, ups and downs
Disruption.
and all of that stuff. So thank you so much for being here, PJ. How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Thanks for having me. This is kind of crazy. I was thinking about it actually the other day. We used to do this before even podcasting was a thing. I'm not a morning person, as you know, but I would come by the IT studio, at the Ackerley Group, and we would sit and chop it up like this, to over the first cup of coffee of the morning before I'd have to go and take on my sales duties, right?
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. It's funny because those formative years really helped us develop some of the skills we've used our entire life. That was a real amazing testing ground for a lot of things, a lot of challenging times, a lot of exciting times. And, when we were there, I often tell people about the transition and how IT developed and how printing developed and how it evolved and changed. And you're still in the outdoor business right now, doing a few things with the organization, right?
Yeah, that's right. I work for a company called Outdoor Link, and we support outdoor companies with a out-of-band timing system that we have that allows them to, sort of set their lights from a distance. But yeah, I mean, I've been around the business almost my entire career. I took a couple of left turns, which I'm sure we'll talk about today. But it's amazing how much the industry's changed, but
Yeah.
how much it stayed exactly the same. And while we heard it for years, we still hear it now that, it's a dying industry, or that it's, that the new things coming along, or everybody's targeting mobile, or everybody's targeting, Google AdWords was a thing 15 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And everybody was worried about it. But what continues to survive? It's the outdoor business. It's the billboard companies that, just keep flourishing. And so I remember they used to say that it gets in your blood, when I was young and up and coming, and the old guard guys would tell you, it gets in your blood and you'll be here, forever. And it's kind of true. I mean, I feel like every time I've tried to get out of the industry, something's pulled me back in. And the most successful years I've had have been, in and around billboards. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, it sure changed my life. It kind of, it took me 2 years to recover from falling off a billboard. And
That's right.
and it really impacted, even though it's a challenging time in my life, it's still that whole episode at the Ackerley Group, AK Media, and doing that, all of those evolutions that I had within the organization really made a difference in my life, and it's life impacting forever. And I suspect it's the same example for you, because you're still in the industry. Billboards are still a thing. People are still buying them. And the way we approach them, I'm sure, is different. However, advertising and media and all of the things that go along with it, the psychology of the message and everything that goes along with it, is essentially the same. People still want to know what's going on, and a billboard is an essential part of that.
Oh, totally. And with the advent of digital out of home and programmatic buying and all the things that people can do, nowadays, it's the industry is just so strong. And look what survived during COVID times. All of those companies were, got to keep, doing business because the message that they needed to get out and the restaurants were still open, or they were, serving food to go, or whatever it was. You really
Yeah.
see how much of um, how closely they're tied with the fabric of our communities, and so it does make a lot of sense. I feel like I'm doing a commercial for the outdoor industry, but but it's true. I mean, it you're right. It did, those years for me really sort of helped shape who I would become, too, because I never wanted to be a salesperson, in my life. I never thought that it was even something I would consider doing. I grew up in a small family run delicatessen, ironically, in Northern California.
Hmm.
And the sales guys would come in and talk to my dad, and they'd laugh and they'd joke, and they'd always have the great, the great jokes. And they'd leave, and I'd say, "Wow, I really like Tom." And my dad would say, "Yeah, but he's just a sales guy. He's paid to do that, right?" And so, like, that, as a kid, was how I viewed salespeople. Was just somebody that wasn't, you know, real. It was
Yeah.
just all made up and manufactured. And so when I became a salesperson, because I just kind of was naturally my personality, I was fearful of it for years, and hated telling people that that's what I did for a living.
Oh,
And but then got, as I grew and as my experience, grew, and I got to really do cool stuff.
yeah.
When we went from, I did really cool stuff at Ackerley, but then, as we went to Clear Channel, I got to do some really even neater stuff, with my Times Square things that I did, and taking a brand that was a local brand here and go national with it. It became, sort of really cool for me. And then I saw how my mind worked and how I could grow that on a national stage.
It's interesting how a little turn of events can expand your experience and really make a difference and change how you feel about things. Because it's really about using your accumulated experience to achieve better results over time. And you left the industry for a little period of time because you've always been you and I have been much alike. You always have something else going on the side. Whether it be music or I remember sitting in my apartment down in downtown Seattle and hacking around on music. I think it was more me trying to put something together, but it was a lot of great times. And you actually took that to the next level. And you've been an entrepreneur, and you did a startup actually.
Yeah.
And I'm fascinated about that story, and I want to share that. And I know that it may not necessarily. I know you have a lot of good stories around that, and I really
Mm.
haven't dug into it at all. And so I'd kind of like to have you share that journey and kind of outline some of the challenges and some of the things
Yeah.
that.
The reasons why I stay up at night, is that what you're trying to
No.
get at? No. So, yeah, it was kind of two faceted, really. I mean, my first left turn out of the outdoor business was, I mentioned before, I grew up in and around restaurants and a delicatessen. So I took a left turn initially to open a chain of dueling piano bars, our own dueling piano bars in Seattle, and eventually had three restaurants, and very successful. Did that for 8+ years. When my daughter Stella was born, I realized I needed to be a dad. I needed to be
Yeah.
home, and so I sold my interest in the restaurant and came back into media, and was doing more on the buying side of things then, and did that for a few years. And while I was at working at Westfield, ironically, learning sort of digital engagement and that kind of thing, I came up with an idea for a music sharing app, because there wasn't such a thing at the time, and still really no one's actually solved for the exact problem that I believe we solved for. And the idea was very simple. It was, just being able to take a licensed version of the song that you love, and
Uh-huh.
being able to share it, one to one or one to many, right? You could send it via text message, or
Right.
on your social platforms, or whatever the case was. YouTube existed, but who has time, if you're not a teenager, right? Who has time to go through all those different YouTube versions of a particular song to find the one that you're looking for, that you want to share with a friend or with a loved one or whatever? Because you're absolutely right. And music, tells our stories, and
Yeah.
is the thing that brings us back to those moments. And so, a really close friend of mine was a programmer, and he was a executive vice president at Microsoft, and had just left, and had learned how to code on iOS. And so I
Mm.
told him the idea, and we started working on it together. And 2 years later, we'd raised like 3.5 million, and had our record label deals done, and had the same catalog that Spotify had, and
Wow.
launched this thing. And I mean, it was a ride, man. It was some of the highest highs, some of the lowest lows,
Yeah.
all in the same thing. And I always joke, I say, if you Google my name, the first thing that pops up is an article about me in Fortune magazine. That, and $5 gets me a cup of coffee at Starbucks, right? because we're close, but we just didn't, we weren't able to pull it completely over the line. And maybe, timing's everything, right?
Yeah.
And you have to learn so much, in even those failures. And for a while, it really spun me down, because I was so close and thought, yeah, we got something, and then we
Yeah.
didn't. And and then to think of yourself as a failure, to think of the idea didn't make it, right? So it's hard. It takes a minute, to sort of recover, from that. But I did. I took away so many lessons, and it made me just even that much stronger.
Yeah. I know I remember the app, and I was like a little silent cheerleader on the side and
Mhm,
watching it evolve. And especially being a musician, and having been in the music industry long before the internet was there, and watching some of the music and the musicians, and how it's evolved over time. It's like a lot of musicians, they really don't have a platform like they used to have. Like when I was growing up in music, we would play live. I played live for every night for 7 years. It's almost inconceivable to do that now, because there might be the venues around. They're not
mhm,
they're not the same kind of venues though that I've seen recently. And so, and music, a lot of music is online now. There's a lot of artists doing some amazing creative things. And it would be really nice to be able to share that with your friends,
mhm.
and do that. And have an app that does that as well. I mean, so it's almost as if it was too soon. You planted the seed, and now it's happening in a little different way, obviously. And then with Spotify growing, it's amazing to watch these platforms. Amazon's getting in the game. Spotify, Apple has always been there, and there's some very big players now that it'd be a challenge to break into, I think.
Well, it's interesting because you think about. I mean, here's an interesting little snapshot of the timing, right? All the things you mentioned, didn't exist whenever we came up with the idea for the app, right? The
Yeah,
way that people were streaming music at the time was Pandora. And and Pandora was sort of a set it and forget it experience. You liked the Beatles, we chose the Beatles channel,
yeah,
and then you'd go, and you had no choice over what was playing. There was no sort of on demand, right? And
yeah,
then Apple Music didn't even exist at the time. I mean, we were still paying 99 cents to download, a song, right? And so it was really, I mean, this is 2012,
yeah,
2013. I mean, not that long ago, really, in comparison. There was no such thing as Netflix, or any of that kind of stuff when we first
right,
started, or it was just maybe just sort of taking off. But there was not the breadth of services that we have now. And second phase of what we were going to do had nothing to do with music. It was all about streaming media on TV, which I still think would be very, very relevant today, because you and I and every one of the people listening or watching this pirate radio broadcast is has a different way of how they consume media, right? I mean,
yeah,
you might be a Netflix person. I'm an Apple TV guy.
yeah,
Somebody else could be a Hulu person, right? Whatever. But we all have our series that we watch, and isn't that what everybody's talking about now when they're getting into these Zoom conversations? Like, hey, what's everybody watching? Oh, I just finished a great series called
yeah,
X, and then it's like, oh, well, what's it on? and do I have a subscription to that or do I not?
Yeah.
Right. And so, it would have been cool to be able to sort of solve that problem for people too.
Yeah. Absolutely. I really, and I love the idea. I love the idea. In fact, when I come across something, like on YouTube, and I haven't had an actual television, since 1995. It's like I just it's not what I do. And I'll binge watch on Netflix or Hulu or a platform like that. And it's once in a while, and it's like infrequently when I just need to
Mhm.
decompress and not really think about anything. However, the majority of my watch time, my screen time is on YouTube learning something. And so
Mhm. Right.
that's my mode, and it's not everybody's mode. And it's like, okay, this is really cool. I want to learn how to do this. And so I can go to, and the information is available and it's easy to share now. And so it's like, how do I share from platform to platform, and how do I navigate that and share it with my friends and create a community? And so there's a lot of things that are thinking about. So now also I want to kind of shift gears here, PJ, because um, your son Sam,
Mhm.
who is an amazing individual, we connected are reconnected through Frank Pedroni. So Frank, when I were going back and forth online, and Frank, and he goes, "Hey, have you seen this video for some Sam?"
Mhm.
And it's like holy cow! It's like if you having problems, you just talk to your son Sam.
Yeah. So Sam's 8, as you know. We started this thing, or he started this thing earlier this year, where he basically, the story goes, he found some money that was given to him by one of his grandparents, and he had lost it, just let it go, or whatever, in his room, and found it one day. And so for like a week he was in my ear, hey dad, what should I spend this $40 on? What I've been looking at Amazon, I want this sticker pack, or I want that. I mean, it's no different than we were kids and we go to the grocery store with our parents and kick and scream over a box of Captain Crunch,
Yeah.
except he's got Amazon at his fingertips, and so he's always buying something. He wants a resin kit to make, jewelry, or, whatever it is. Right.
Uh,
And so I said to him, man, I said, you got to save money. You got to learn to save money, And so we were having this conversation for 3 or 4 days. And finally I said to him, you know what? I'll make you a challenge. If you can put $200 in your bank account between now and the day before your birthday in November, I'll match dollar for dollar whatever you have. But
yeah.
you got to come up with an idea, and you got to do it on your own, because I'm not just going to give you money. Your
Which I
mom's not.
thought was a brilliant idea.
Well, the brilliant idea is what he came up with to do. And
Yeah.
so he had, his sister had this lemonade stand that was, had been around in the family for years and years and years. And we were doing a pop-up mask sale every Saturday, because my ex-wife was came up with this phenomenal idea to make masks for people, right? That she was doing it originally for her healthcare, friends, and it grew into a business because the demand was so big. Because you couldn't buy masks anywhere for the longest period of time, and so she was getting really cool fabric, and and making these cool designs. So we were doing this thing on Saturdays anyway. So
Mhm.
one Saturday, Sam rolls up the lemonade stand, and he had gotten this idea to do a life advice booth, and so he sits at this lemonade stand, and there's a chair across from him, and people come up, and they just, he charges them $1. And in the beginning, it was this novelty thing where people were like, wait, an 8-year-old's going to give me life advice? And then they would sit down, and I mean, he's almost a therapist, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's pretty crazy. And he had started like that weekend prior. I was sitting where I'm sitting now, drinking a cup of coffee in the morning, just kind of chilling out. And he comes and he sits across from me, and he says, my name's Sam Danger, or I'm Dr. Sam Danger. Danger is actually his middle name. And he goes, and I'm the world's greatest therapist, and I'm here for your therapy session. And I just looked at him and I said, okay, I'll go with this for a minute. And he had a pad of paper. And his first question to me was, he goes, how are you feeling right now? It emotionally. And I went, who are you? Right. So I went with it, and we did this like, 5 or 10 minute session where he took copious notes. And
Mhm.
then later that day I went back and I looked at the notes that he had taken, And I mean, it was like I was in therapy, and so he's had a really fun time with it, and it's kind of gone viral, to the point where 3 different news stories have been done on him. There was one on Evening Magazine just recently, and so a lot of people have seen it. A lot of people want to do Skype sessions with him now, and all sorts. We haven't broken into the digital thing yet, but for those of you keeping track at home, he's raised over $500 in his bank account, and so it's going to be a pretty hefty bill for me to match. So I
You
gotta,
you still have
I
a few
got,
months to go,
I
PJ.
know I gotta sell some extra units, or the at work, just to try to pay that bill. But it's been fantastic, and he's always been that kid really that comes up with. Uh, he has really really deep conversations all the time, and it's been that way since he was a kid. Sometimes he'll ask me, philosophical questions, and I'll say to him, well, do you want to know what I believe, or do you want to know what sort of mainstream, thought is on it? And he'll
Yeah,
say both, and so then I have to give him sort of both angles, and then let him, kind of come up with what his own sort of ideals are.
yeah. So, hey, guess who's in the house?
Who?
Hey,
There,
gents,
there he
what's
is.
going on, Frank? The man, the myth, the legend. So fantastic. We also have Pablo from Italy, the Pirates, and Lori Knutson. So, hey, Gabriel, hello, my friend.
Hey,
Gabriel
Lori.
is back and say, hey, Lori, how's it going? Gabriel says, good morning, everyone. High dives on network, Texas Tomble. See y'all Monday. So that has to be kind of refreshing to think that your son is thinking in those kind of dimensions. It's not a typical 8-year-old conversation that comes up and says, how are you feeling emotionally?
Totally, it is refreshing, especially given the times that we're in right now.
Yeah.
With all the weirdness that's going on in the world, right? It's really cool to see somebody, um, that's so youthful, come up with those kind of thoughts, and it just gives you hope, right? Because I think for so many of us, we sat here for months going, "God, what's going on? Is the world ending tomorrow? Or which conspiracy theory do you want to dive into,
Right,
today?"
right.
But it's incredible to see him, and it's all his thing. It's 100% authentic. Sam, I know he was going to join you yesterday,
Yeah.
but had become like violently ill on Wednesday out of nowhere. Like, he was fine. He was like taking a test, got done, and next thing you know, he was like down for the count. And he's fine now. Feels much better. Just some little 24-hour bug or something went
Yeah.
through him, but it was crazy. But yeah, you'll get a kick. We'll get him on here,
We're
because he
getting
was really
rescheduled.
he
So
was really looking forward to doing it. And you and I talked about it, and I told you, I said, I don't want to be in the with him when he does it, because you'll get more out of him just talking to him than if I'm there, or his mom's there or something, because then he'll sort of lean on us.
yeah. Yeah, it's amazing to think that and we're all I truly believe, PJ, and it's been part of my whole philosophy for decades, is that we all have a gift. We just kind of have to unpack ourselves sometimes and figure out what that gift is, because we all have something to deliver to the world. And with your experience in the piano bars and music and all of the entertainment piece of the puzzle, and then outdoor, and the startup community, think of all the dimensions and how all of those relationships have been able to mesh together in a different way, and you as a result have developed as an individual as a result of those relationships, and the gifts that you bring to the world. And now that there's Sam involved, and it's like another dimension of your life, and it's crazy how it evolves and it expands as you look back and say, wow, yeah, that did happen.
Well, it's true, and you think about the successes and the failures, and sometimes it's through those failures, or through tragedy, or through something that really sort of uncovers that gift, that, as you said, that gift that you have, or the
Mhm.
thing that's really your core, value, or your core fabric, that you're able to bring to the world. And I think that um, it's so important to embrace that, and and to, once you can identify it and work on it, because you have to hone it. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
doesn't. It's like any other skill. You're not just an amazing musician overnight, or you're not, one of the world's best podcasters, the day you start. You go through trials and tribulations, and you stay at it. But I think as long as you stay true to, what's in your heart, then, you can't help but be a success.
Yeah.
It takes some time to grind it out, but look at all the people that told you you couldn't do something, and if you truly love it and you stay with it, then that's who you become.
Yeah. It's interesting because I just, with, and I've been promoting this idea that you are the media now, with the internet and, live streaming and podcasting and everything else. I've been teaching podcasting for about 6, 7 years now. And I really love the idea that anyone with a voice and a message that wants to put it out there can create their channel, create an audience, and it doesn't have
Hmm.
to be a huge audience. You don't have to be Howard Stern or Joe Rogan to have your level of success and have a quality life. You can actually put quality information out there, generate some revenue, and enjoy life. It's about how do you spend your days? How do you feel about the day that you're spending? And are those close enough to make you happy and comfortable in life and feel good about what's going on? So those are some things that I like to consider and share.
And I think that philosophy, or that view, seems to be an older person's mentality, right? Because we go through, or at least I always thought it was. We go through life, and then you kind of get to the point where we are now, where you're like,
Yeah,
yeah, you know what? I'm on the downhill slide, so why would I do anything that's not what I love, right?
yeah,
Um, but I think kids like Sam, and the millennials have kind of already adapted that, and
yeah.
so they're not waiting until they're 50,
Oh,
like
no.
we are. They're doing it at 20. They don't drive, they don't they live close to, where they're going to work, and
Yeah,
they walk, and they have community, and they have, those things that are, took a lot of us a long time to sort of figure out. And so that's another thing that sort of inspires me for the future, is that, I think people are figuring it out a lot sooner. Somebody asked Sam the other day, in one of those videos, I think the one you saw, where he said, what advice do you, need today? And they said, well, I want to follow my dreams, but some people don't want me to, because I'd have to spend money to follow my dreams.
mhm.
Without hesitation, he said, well, you absolutely need to follow your dreams, because why would you want to live your life doing something you don't want to do?
Yeah.
And
It just
and
makes
so
sense.
and so many of us took jobs or did things that we didn't want to do, because we felt like we had to make money, or we had to pay rent, or we had to do, this or that. And so, it's pretty real.
Yeah. Well, and I think, for myself growing up, you there was a certain criteria that you followed, and I think there's depending on what period of life you're going through, it's like my mother wanted me to go to college. She wanted me to go to college. She wanted me to go to college. I tried it. It didn't take. And so the only thing I wanted to do was be a musician.
Yeah.
So I played music and I played music for years. I had a great life. And there were periods of time where I would go skiing in the daytime and play music in the night. I, I, I had a car and a house, and it was like everything was great. It was a place to live, a thing to drive. I got from point A to point B, and that's as much as I ever wanted. And so we have these ideas, and then you think about, okay, well, you get married, you have kids, you have a house, you have a job, and all these things, and sometimes the American dream turned it into my American nightmare. And it's like, okay,
Sure.
this is not what I want to do. And like you said, some of the kids nowadays are going, that's not what I want to do. I want to get more experience. I want to go explore. I want to travel. I want to see new things. And my son's in that place right now. It's like he's doing a lot of different things, and he has a job that allows him to do those things right now. And I think he would quit the job if he found something that he wanted to do more. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Sam said that the other day. He said that he wanted to, when he got older, after high school, he was going to buy an RV and drive it around the world. And he said, "Don't you think that sounds cool?" And I said, maybe you should think about, drive the RV around North America, maybe South America, right? And then you might have to fly a few places. And he's like, no, I'm going to drive the RV everywhere. I said, well, let's understand the world first before we decide where you're going to drive to, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
it's cool, man.
That's fantastic. So I just want to say, Kenyatta says, "Good morning, wonderful people, Pirate Broadcast. Uh, love you, Kenyatta. Thank you so much for jumping in." Ken- Jill Sullivan, Chef Sullivan, she's an amazing individual. Thank you so much for jumping in, Jill. I appreciate that. Uh, PJ, we're wrapping up and out of time, and it's been an amazing time connecting with you, reconnecting with you. And I know that there's many more stories that we could share and talk about. I just really want to make sure that people understand that, Sam will be coming on in the future, and we'll stay connected and have conversations as well. Also, where do people get a hold of you if they want outdoor and they want to be able to purchase stuff, or they want to connect and just chat with you and talk about ideas, or brainstorm or anything like that?
Yeah, so I'm at Outdoor Link. You can find me on LinkedIn. It's the easiest way to do it.
Sure.
We do a lot of stuff for billboard companies, as we talked about, also for, in the commercial space and in the enterprise space. The same controllers we use work there too. And so really doing a lot of stuff. You can find me at outdoorlinkinc.com, or like I said, LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever. But I'd love to connect with people. I love seeing some of the names of people we've worked with in the past. Obviously, Pedroni, he and I
Yeah.
still kick it from time to time. But yeah, love to hear from people. And I appreciate you having me on, and we'll have to do it again. We should do it after you talk with Sam, because
Yeah.
it'll be fun to kind of bookend that.
Well, we'll look at it in the future and have a great time. So don't go away. Everyone, as you know, thank you so much for being here on the Pirate Broadcast. I love this thing, 5 days a week, streaming to all these platforms up here. If I can get them here, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, through Periscope, and LinkedIn Live as well. And also, as you know, kindness is cool, smiles are free, and you enjoy the day. Take care,
Thanks,
people.
Russ.
You bet. Thank you for joining the Pirate Broadcast. If you found this content valuable, please like, comment, and share it across your social media channels. I would love the opportunity to help others grow in their business. The Pirate Syndicate is a platform where you show up, we produce the show. It's that easy. If you want to be seen, be heard, and be talked about, join the Pirate Syndicate today.